been said. Discrimination is alive and well in America today. How painful a statement. How harsh a statement. How can you say that? Because it's true. But why do you have to say it even though it's true? It's harsh sounding. Because in life and society, you will never solve a problem you're unwilling to admit. You will never solve a problem you're unwilling to admit. We don't want to admit that we discriminate. America, this great land of diversity and opportunity with so many civil rights battles and so many legal advancements, we still discriminate. Yes, we do. Every day, in and out. And it's been institutionalized in societies and institutionalized in systems. Employment discrimination, lending discrimination. It's not as blatant and obvious and notorious as the 1960s, graphic, brutal. Sometimes it is, but not usually. It's more insidious as it's marbleized through society. And you almost can't find where it's an industry practice and a business practice versus illegal discrimination. It's what we do every day. But it is there. It is there. And Mylan's point, well, we should pass a law. Legislators here, they pass laws. Sometimes you need a new law. Sometimes you need to enforce the existing law. Sometimes it's not about a new law. Sometimes you have the laws, you're just not enforcing them. Well, why don't you enforce them? You don't want to. It's not sexy, it's not politic, it's hard. Or because you're running into mainstream society and mainstream America and mainstream business practices, and you're disrupting business practices. Here's the law in the state of New York, okay? You're all young lawyers. New York State Executive Law 296. To refuse to sell, rent, lease, or otherwise to deny to or withhold from any person or group of persons such a housing accommodation because of the race, creed, color, national origin, sexual orientation, military status, sex, age, disability, marital status, or familial status of such person or persons, or to represent that any housing accommodation or land is not available for inspection, sale, rental, or lease when it is in fact so available. There is nothing ambiguous about that law. New York State law is modeled on the Fair Housing Law, federal law. There's nothing ambiguous. But yet it's violated every day. It's violated by real estate brokers. It's violated by banks. It's violated by managing agents. And they'll say, well, you know, this is just how we do business. Everybody does this. Everybody does it. Just because everybody does it doesn't mean it's right. Everybody can do things that are wrong. They do it all the time. So it's not about the law. We have the law. It's about enforcing the law. And it's about being honest when you wake up in the mirror. And you look at who we are and what we're really doing and what you decide to prioritize and enforce. And that's what we are doing. Now, we have these cases today. They are in a series of cases. We have done over 200 tests over the past 3 years all across the state. And today it happens to be Brooklyn and Schenectady County, which is upstate New York, near Albany. It can be in any of New York's 62 counties because it happens every day, every week. Not just in New York. As Hakeem mentioned, I was in the federal service, and I did these cases all across the country. Why is housing so important? Senator Adams said this. Where you live, and the freedom to live where you want to live, actually establishes and starts to socialize and culturalize. Where you live is who your friends are. Where you live is where you go to school. Where you live is who you associate with. And we live in segregated areas across this state and across this country. If you take a rocket ship and you go back and you look at planet Earth and you look at the United States, you'll see segregated housing patterns, segregated living arrangements, whites, blacks, Asians, You'll see it in rural parts of the country, suburban parts of the country, and urban parts of the country. I did cases when I was on the federal side, public housing projects that were segregated building by building by building. The Latino building is the black building, it's the white building. Well, people are more comfortable living that way. Or is it that we're not following the law? And where you live, not just your home, your sanctuary, Senator's point, which is exactly right. It's who you wind up being, who you wind up relating to, who you're comfortable with, and who you learn from. Fair housing law, Fair Housing Act, was passed in 1968. It was passed as a tribute to Martin Luther King's life. President Johnson passed it as a recognition of the contribution of Martin Luther King and the new awareness that this country had. That's when the nation passed the Fair Housing Law in 1968. New York emulated that law. Today, the fight is just as real as it was in 1968. And in many ways, we've made great progress. We do have Barack Obama, President of the United States. In many ways, you have discrimination on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn today the way you did in 1968. Be aware of the law. Be aware that we will enforce the law. And this is my last point. Why don't you enforce the law? Well, we talked about that. When you are serious about solving a problem as a society, you know what you'll do? You'll enforce the law. And when you enforce the law, people will change their behavior. When you wanted to fight drugs, you passed some of the toughest drug laws in the nation. And you made the point, if you go near drugs, we're going to lock you up. You wanted to make a statement to society that it's a good thing to wear a seatbelt. So you passed the seatbelt law. Now look, you made everybody wear seatbelts. You take the belt and pull it. But people did it, right? Because there was a law. And you did it because it was smart, and it was because it was right, and if you didn't do it, you can get a ticket. So enforcing the law can modify behavior. Enforce the anti-discrimination laws. Enforce those laws. Say we are serious. It's not just rhetoric in a speech. It's not just aspirational. It's just not 1968 Martin Luther King, President Johnson. It's today. And we are serious. Not in New York, the capital of diversity, the capital of immigration, that taught the rest of the nation that we can actually live well and prosper together by accepting and relishing the diversity as a source of strength, not as a source of weakness. That's who we are fundamentally. That's our model to the country. Let's now take the next step and say, in this state, anyone discriminates against another person, not just immoral, not just wrong, it's illegal. And this state will enforce those laws. So don't even think about it. Thank you very much, Brooklyn Law School, for having us today. I invite my colleagues to join me up here today.